All right. What's going on, TDL audience? This is for members only. I'm going to probably cut this up a little later on in the week and put this up on the main channel. But this one right here is for members only. This is coming at you, the Devon Weatherspoon breakdown. This is one of my favorite corners in the draft. I already went in depth on Christian Gonzalez, a few games with his. I watched with Marcus, put up for the channel, so you can go back through the recommended videos and see Christian Gonzalez, another top corner in the draft. But this guy, Devon Weatherspoon, he's is a little bit different of a prospect, extremely clean from a technique standpoint. And we're going to talk about the differences between like skill and talent. And as far as it goes, like him slotting into an NFL defense right now, Devon Weatherspoon can go day one, get in the mix, be a viable starter. And it's really because of where he's at with his skill level and his willingness and his ability to tackle. So both of those things I think make for a strong, easy transition to be a pro. And then we'll get to maybe what his ceiling is a little later on. So I'm just going to jump on into it, show you guys my screen. All right. So first things first, we talked about tackling. And there's some really strong examples of Devon Weatherspoon. In this one, he's got a motion across the field. And it's just something where it's like, okay, I recognize it. I know it's happening. Let me put my foot in the ground and attack this. So that's a fantastic job. Once again, I'll show you again. Drive, his feet, explode through the ball carrier. I mean, technically that's a pass breakup because the guy ended up going down. All right, here's another one where you get the screen. He's corner over. They got a single wide formation. These are two tight ends over here. There's two wide receivers at the bottom of the screen. So a lot of people might look at this and they go, okay, he's playing nickel. No, technically not playing nickel. He's just a corner over because there's two wide receivers on one side of the field. And watch the gesture. Watch the hand gesture that he's giving to his guy. They're doing something out here. They're banjoing or they're switching off. But they get the screen, and he goes and he finishes. He just drives through that wide receiver. Look how the wide receiver's head goes backwards when Weatherspoon makes that contact, knocking guys back. That's always a sign of a strong tackler, on top of not only knocking the guy back, but driving the feet, wrapping, exploding the hips through. That is a 5-point tackle. Great job there. So here we go. Here's another example. And we're going to get into his press technique, his off man and his pedal, which we see a good example of a leverage step here. But he chases this down. You're going to give up some catches in the NFL. It's going to happen. And you see, this is technically, quote unquote, Weatherspoon giving up a catch, tackles the guy as soon as he catches the ball. And throws him back, drives his feet through. Again, strong tackle, only gives up 3 yards on that catch. Okay, now this is an example in zone. He's going to go ahead and feather and play in the inside leverage with his back to the man. And the reason why you do that is because you're getting ready to put your foot in the ground and come up and attack the flats. So when the ball comes out, he goes for it. And you can see how he's so much quicker getting up out of his break than, say, 21 is, because of his body positioning and playing the correct technique for the call. And that allows him to get up out of his break so much quicker. And you see him again here, track it from inside out. Don't duck the head, but you do see, that's not a perfect tackle, but you do see some of his power, this guy bouncing right off of him. Again, knocking guys backwards. Similar kind of rep right here. He's going to, more often than not, yeah, he has some misses. Is he the best tackler ever that ever lived? No. But he's a guy who you can count on him. He can make open field tackles. It's part of his game. He's shown it over and over again. And this is really the most ridiculous example. Just, I mean, we can watch this like a million times if you're a football fan. It reminds me of like Sheldon Richardson decleating Reggie Bush. There's no way that guy stayed in the game after this. Ding! That's ridiculous. Incredible play. So, you know, Witherspoon, he's got some power. You know, a little bit of hanging that guy out to dry. Not saying he could just bring down an NFL back in the open field like that, but you see he's a guy who could throw his body around, plays behind his pads, will stick his face in the fan to make some tackles. Okay, now let's get into his pass coverage, and we'll start off with his press technique. This time, again, corner over, so he's in the slot, and he's in a tough position here playing press man because we got a two-way go. It's not as simple as playing out there in terms of your leverages that you're going to have on the outside. So he's got a two-way go here from the inside, and we see him get that initial footwork where he's playing backwards and he gets his hips in line with the wide receiver before he gets the hands on. So it's like a simultaneous thing. As he's turning his hips, he gets the hands on and he's riding this guy. And more often than not, you'll see him play such good leverage where the guys are just fighting to get back through him because he's in that perfect hip pocket position. And if you're a little late on this guy's going to be able to get you stacked, and now he can go wherever you want. But you don't let him get you stacked by staying on that upfield shoulder and riding him. Throws off the timing of that one. Top of the screen. Watch the footwork. We're going to motor out. It's very patient. Stays on that upfield shoulder. Very patient. He's fearless. And you see that he's had such good body positioning on this, and he gets that contact key up high when he feels the shoulders start to drop. He lowers his weight and is able to play through this the entire way with the contact key, with his eyes on the ball, looking back at the quarterback. Here we go again. This is another example of corner over. He's playing in man coverage in the slot. We're going to get that initial look how patient the feet are. And this is the great part about Devon Weatherspoon is he's not going to open the gate and start guessing. He's going to wherever you take him, he's going to defend that leverage, whether it's inside or it's outside. He's going to defend his leverage, and you just see incredible work to just deny this guy to get back up on that hash where he wants to attack. And that's an example of playing the leverage. If the guy took an outside, if the slot receiver took an outside release, he's going to do the same exact thing where he's going to defend his landmark, which is the hash. So in this case, he takes the inside release, so he puts his body between him and the hash. And look how hard this guy's fighting to get back to the hash. But because Witherspoon puts himself and he defends his leverage so well, it's almost impossible. All right, here's another example from the outside. And, there's a few examples of this, and we've already seen some, so I'll name it right now. He's in man coverage at the top of the screen. And I want you to see, he gets stacked. Okay, he's stacked. And I like how his hands are low, okay? But he also has a really good understanding of where these receivers want to go. And he's running the route for them so often where he's just like, I'm going to beat you to where you want to go. So he does that quite a bit. And you see some savvy here to where he gets stacked. He has those low hands to make sure the guy doesn't just run away from him. So these are strong coverage reps. Some of these aren't covered, so you got to learn how to watch film through that lens of, is this going to be a catch in the NFL, regardless if he gets targeted or not? And here's another really good example of his patience. Watch how strong he fights to stay square the entire rep. Stay square on this guy. This is a textbook rep. You get the back motioning out wide at the last second, so it turns his guy into a slot technically. What is the concept? What are we going to see a lot has to be processed now at the very last moments before the snap, because the formation changes from a 4x1 now all of a sudden to a 3x2. So Weatherspoon has to be in his mental Rolodex of what have I seen them do on film out of this formation, at the same time as execute a world-class press technique. And the reason why this is world-class technique, again, fighting to stay square, you see the motor steps back, motor, and then when the guy chooses a side, when the receiver chooses a side, we see him kick his hips in front and land the hands. And because he has this positioning, ultimately, he's able to control the entire rest of the rep from that position. Fantastic. So if you thought that the press technique was good, the technique from a pedal is even better, believe it or not. This is why he's such a clean prospect, because he does these things that are skills at a high level. All right, so press is one skill, pedal is another skill. And I want to talk about having quiet feet to start your rep when you're playing your press. You don't want to just pedal really fast up out of there, because look where your feet are defending. They're around the sticks. And if you pedal too far too quickly, now all of a sudden you're not defending the sticks, you're only defending the deep routes. So you do have to do a little bit of you're playing chicken with this guy, because you're going backwards and he's running full speed right at you. And so one of the benefits, one of the ways that you're going to help yourself turn in this situation is by maintaining your leverage. And when he runs past you, you got to stick that hand out, put that hand out, swipe it down his front, and that's going to slow him down just a little bit while you turn your head around and run. So you've got to play with physicality from a press. I know a lot of people think, okay, yeah, it's press, so you don't have to be as physical. No. You got to get your body, your knees, your hips, your arm in front of this guy as you make your turn. So you do have to have that element of physicality when you play from a pedal. So that's a good example of it here. Again, starts the rep off with really quiet, calm feet, and that it gives him a chance now to put his foot in the ground and drive on this slant. And a lot of times you're not going to see a guy contest a slant from a pedal, because they're pedaling too far too quickly. But you see how quiet his feet are. He goes to the slant and he's able to literally beat the receiver to the spot. Throws this one off completely. Blows that timing of that off. That's a PBU. All right. Here's another really good example of something breaking inside. This time it's a curl that he gets. Watch the rep all the way through. And again, we have those quiet feet. And just look how he fights to stay square. I mean, his feet are going, they quick. The frequency, as the receiver gets closer to him, the frequency of his foot fire gets faster and faster and faster. But he's not gaining extra ground. He's not all of a sudden taking these huge, big strides backwards and bouncing back 10, 15 yards. Okay? His feet go fast, but they don't go far. And that enables him to make this beautiful drive and break on the ball and attack the hands. And you'll see him consistently affect the catch point as well. All right, so first things first, let's just talk about understanding the game here. We got a wide receiver all the way. The widest wide receiver is only lined up on the hash. So that should all of a sudden, that should immediately be a key for Weatherspoon. Okay, what does it tell him? That the receiver is going out, obviously. Look how much space is over here. So this is his leverage. He's got to defend anything coming out. It ends up going out. And so let's talk about this rep. First and foremost, he's got those quiet feet. He sees the slant, so he goes to break on it. But while he's breaking on the slant, he still maintains that outside leverage. You see his shadow is further outside than the receiver's shadow. And his shadow never gets further inside. You'll just see how he always has that outside leverage just by looking at the shadows. Now, the reason why this is a successful play, even though he does bite on this initial move, is because he's put himself in an outside leverage position. The receiver now has to fight back through him to get to the out. So he's mitigated some of the risk on breaking on that initial break because of that leverage that he maintains. And then again, finishes through the catch point, affects the catch point. All right, let's see. Let's check this one out. From a pedal, again, we got to be physical while the guy breaks our cushion, and we need to turn. We need to get our hands on, and it's going to assist us in making that turn. In the NFL, you got to make sure that you got the right kind of gloves on, that it's matching your opponent's jersey so that the refs don't start calling flags for everything. And there's definitely some Sundays where, hey, you might see a flag for something like this. If the refs are trying to keep the game from being too chippy, too physical on the outside, they might start throwing flags for something like this. So it's something to keep an eye on with Witherspoon. Again, always maintains that outside leverage, always defends his leverage. So even when he does bite on that initial move, on this double move, he's still always in a spot, in a position where he can recover and make a play on the ball. So this is really phenomenal tape, to be honest with you. I mean, from just a skill perspective, okay? Everything that this guy's doing is like textbook how it should be done and how coaches are going to coach it. And regardless, and it's going to be principles that, a coach might have a different word for it. They might coach it a different way from a different vocabulary or terminology standpoint. But it ends up it's gonna look like that. That's what it's gonna look like. What he's doing in press, what he's doing in a pedal, his man coverage is super high. And in order to be a first round pick, you have to be able to play man coverage at a high level as a corner. If that's a question mark, okay, maybe there's some tools, maybe there's things to work with. We can talk about second, third round guy. But if man coverage is a question mark, you're off the table as far as the discussion goes as a first round corner. And we not only did we see Weatherspoon play press man at a high level, we also saw him play from a pedal and play man off from an extremely high level. The things that he was doing, I think, is kind of like a dying art. In football, so much of the time we're focusing on press coverage. So much of the time we're focusing on like these too high zones that allow corners to get their butt to the sideline and play in a half turn. And so we're seeing a lot more shuffle technique than pedal. And so just being a guy that's like kind of like a throwback, he can play from a pedal. I think that's going to push him up some teams' draft boards where they got some of the old guard defensive coordinators who value that skill, and usually they have to wait for a guy to be a veteran before they acquire that skill. You get a guy who can come in and do that at day one. We also saw him tackle really well. Only question marks, and I'm just going to be completely transparent. It's always a question mark when watching a Big Ten defensive back because the wide receivers that they're going up against generally don't play in terms of they don't play at the same frequency in the NFL as their other big conferences, including the American Conference. So the wide receiver talent isn't the best in the Big Ten, basically is what I'm trying to say. The quarterbacks as well. It's always a question mark with these guys. If playing pass coverage in the Big Ten, does that really translate to the NFL? And it's like the sixth conference down in terms of translating to the NFL. So that's going to be a question mark for him. But again, I think that the skill level is so high. As long as he is an average athlete, runs under 4.53, jumps at least 35 inches, in terms of like an NFL corner, that is going to be perfectly fine with me. I'm not going to knock him unless he does terribly at the combine. But as long as he just checks off all the boxes, sorry, not the combine, at his pro day because he didn't run at the combine. As long as he checks off all those boxes, he doesn't have to be a guy who runs 4.3. I know that he's like probably 5'11", 190 pounds, but as long as he gets like a low 4.5s and under, I think he's athletic enough to play in the NFL because the skill level is so high. All right, that's it from me. Thanks for tuning in. Just another DJ. I see you in the chat. Appreciate it, brother. All right, that's it for me. Holla at me.